Hi all, and thanks for being with me. I just want to say a few words about some of my recent posts because the enthusiasm that I have received in relation to my current posts on values of political parties and the implementation of those values has been somewhat heartening, and my subscription rate has increased considerably as a result. And the comments that I'm now getting on my YouTube channel are encouraging, to say the least. And I want to thank those of you who have, for the first time, subscribed to my channel, or at least the first time you've seen my channel or come upon it for whatever reason, just happened to pop up in your algorithms, whatever it might be. I want to thank you. And I want to encourage people to subscribe to my channel to help, I guess, to encourage others to think about politics a little differently, to understand what are the nuances that make up our political framework, and to and I don't necessarily mean that you have to agree with me, because I don't expect people to agree with me at all, but I do expect some form of understanding, I guess, that what I'm trying to say is that as an elder person, I was going to say gentleman, but that's probably not the right word to use either, but as a older person with plenty of experience, not just in politics, as I've been involved in politics for most of my life, in some form or another, and I have run for a political party, which I created. But I would just want to say that the experience that comes with me, I think, is primarily around my enthusiasm for wanting to create a better society for everyone at all levels, no matter whether you're on a benefit, or whether you have a disability, you have child protection issues, you've got drug issues and alcohol problems, no matter what it is. As a social worker for over 3 decades, I've come to understand what those problems mean to people, and I understand what it takes for governments to be able to address some of those issues. And I must say, on most occasions, governments find it difficult to address those. I think one of the most outstanding areas that has made a significant change has been the NDIS. And we must thank the Labor Party for that, and for the Liberal Party for continuing it, and for the Labor Party in the last term for improving it. But there's a long, long way to go. And the advocacy that needs to be done in terms of all of those issues that I just mentioned is extreme. And no government has ever risen to the point whereby one can feel satisfied with the way they've addressed most of those issues. And I certainly aren't one of them. And I've made many posts, in fact, on domestic violence. I did a whole series of posts that you can have a look at, which were about 16 days of addressing family violence and what that means. And there was this, United Nations had a program where they were encouraging 16 days of activism, and I did 16 posts, separate posts around the issue, and some of the trainings programs, part of the training program that I've done for decades around domestic violence. I've done, I'm going to say this because I want to address this issue for those people that are new to my channel. I've written some 25 programs, from anxiety and depression to divorce and separation, to anger management programs, conflict resolution, dealing with issues such as workplace bullying and so on. So I have what I think is a breadth of experience and understanding around some of these issues. And I want to use my channel as an opportunity to talk about the experiences that I've had, and some of the things that I've come to realise over the years that are important for our communities to understand, and particularly important for politicians to understand, in order to make the changes that are most beneficial for the community that they serve. So that's why I'm here. That's why I do what I do. But I wanted to also to highlight today and revisit some of the past stuff that has been said over the last, I guess, 4 weeks in relation to this election campaign. Now, many of you that are familiar with my posts know that I often refer to Sky News, primarily because Sky News appears to be that right-wing megaphone for anything that is liberal or conservative. And I find them obnoxious in many ways because of the way that they choose, I guess, to misinform the community about what actually is happening in the real world, not their bubble, not my bubble, but certainly in what they see as relevant information in terms of having their agenda met, which we must remember is always the Murdoch agenda. And these people are Murdoch sycophants paid by Murdoch to do Murdoch's bidding so that Murdoch can develop the power and authority and whatever it is that he wishes to have that tends to make him feel good. So I'm going to just highlight a couple of the conversations that they've had over the last few weeks to draw a comparison, because we're now in a position, I think, where we can say this is what they were saying and doing, and this is how they were encouraging people to think and to vote. And it makes me wonder, as I've said in a previous post, how relevant are the media really? And I've come now to believe that they're not as relevant as certainly they think they are, and they're not as relevant as the community believes that they are. And I think the wonderful thing about the Australian community is that they may appear to be uninterested or even detached from what's happening in politics. But when the real issues are arising, they do listen. The Australian population do understand. They are aware of how things impact them in particular, and they don't take notice. Even though a lot of people would listen to and watch Sky News, it doesn't necessarily mean that they also believe what Sky News and the right-wing media are necessarily telling them. They're drawing on their own experience as to how the environment is, how the cost of living has affected them, who offers them the best alternative. These are the things that matter to Australians. And it doesn't matter what Sky News is saying, because people will evaluate it on their own experiences and their own level of understandings. And to a degree, their own intellectual ability to be able to connect with politics when it matters to them at election times. So I'm going to play a couple of clips of my favourite woman, Peter Credlin, as she's dressed in a black outfit, looking like she's something out of 101 Dalmatians. And just to hear what she has to say. Now, this first one I'm going to play for you occurred on the 17th of April. And this is Peter talking about hubris from Albanese. So her suggestion here is that, firstly, people who watch her show know what hubris means, because a lot of people don't. Must confess, had to look it up myself just to be clear about what it is, but it's really about arrogance, someone becoming arrogant. So it's another word. So instead of saying someone's arrogant, I guess we can use the word hubris, and this is what she's suggesting about Albanese. So in this particular clip, she's trying to discuss Albanese's hubris, and I suppose she's also saying, well, the hubris that he shows, the arrogance that he demonstrates, is going to be his undoing.
Today was Labor's worst day on the campaign, and last night's effort in the leaders' debate, well, that was Peter Dutton's best. Is the coalition finally finding some mojo with just 2 weeks to go now before polling day? It certainly feels like that, doesn't it? Now, will it be enough, though, to see off Labor? We'll see. What's clear is that with the unusually high soft vote, this race is still anyone's, despite the Prime Minister thinking he's already won, with reports today that he's already started talks with the independents.
Now, can we just make a point there? This actually came from the Australian Murdoch Press, so we're not too sure of its validity. And when we look back now, does it really matter?
Women like Rebecca Sharkey to potentially take the Speaker's chair. I mean, talk about hubris. What made the Dutton effort in last night's debate his best outing so far is that he took the fight up to Labor. If I had any criticism of his personal performance to date, it's that the Libs, Well, they've not gone hard enough the target. They've not taken Albanese and his lies head on and not landed the body blows that you've got to land if you want to throw out a first-term government. Now, key in this was his line last night posing the question, are you better off now than you were 3 years ago? Because if the answers are a resounding no, and it's hard to see that it won't be no for most voters, then the Albanese government should be shown the door.
And so when we look at that and we hear what Peter's saying in relation to what she believes the voters should be thinking and what is likely to occur if under her version of where people are experiencing cost of living and what the Liberal Party is offering compared to the Labor Party, she's got a clear view that the cost of living, because there have been increases in cost of living, no one's denying that. Labor Party never denies it. Liberal Party just criticises the Labor Party for it. Means that at the end of the day, people should vote Liberal. This is the way she's thinking. This is because this is the way she views her. This is the way she views her world. So there's this other attack that she has, which is about Labor has nothing to offer but attacks. This is another theme that she did. She did this about just before the election.
But first, with just 48 hours before the polls officially close and counting then gets underway, I still hope that voters will not reward a bad government with 3 more years to wreak havoc on our economy, our communities, our culture and our country. And sure, Anthony Albanese's run a slick campaign, but as I've often remarked, he's good at the political thuggery, but hopeless at governing. And we've seen that thuggery at its worst with the ferocious attacks on people.
I just want us to take note of the language here, political thuggery. So for some reason, he's a thug. It's worth noting also that that there have been some people who were part of the Liberal Party who also referred to Dutton as a thug. Let us not forget that, particularly Malcolm Turnbull. So the word thuggery is important, I guess, for Peter in this instance, but it's definitely a way by which you can taint somebody as being unsuitable to be Prime Minister.
Peter Dutton, the character assassination attempts largely based on lies. Here he was again today.
Peter Dutton opposed every cost of living measure because he had a view.
Incidentally, that's not a lie. That's exactly what they did. And the interesting thing for me about all of this is that even though there's an effort here to, how can I put it? There's an effort to encourage people to believe that that there are all these lies spread. The very first thing that Peter displays to us is an actual fact. That the Dutton and the Greens, for that matter, regretfully, opposed many of the important legislative processes or the legislative things that were instigated by the Labor government, such as building more homes, for example, and many other things as well. They refused to support and this is the problem here, is that the Liberal Party, I think, could have presented themselves in a much better light had they simply decided to support some of the good policies that were Labor. They chose for whatever reason, and I guess the principle here was that, we must oppose everything that they do, whether that be lowering HECS debts, whether that be building more homes, whether that be offering more Medicare centres around Australia, whatever, and the other things were around childcare, and whether people should get better pay, women in particular, in some of those professions where there are mostly women. Those sort of things were all opposed. There's a whole list of them. There's, too many to count. So that was one of the arguments there, and obviously Peter decided that it was important to refer to some of these things as lies, which they clearly weren't. But then, we get to after the election. So how does Peter Credlin respond after the election? I tried to find a clip of her when she was told, when she's on a panel at Sky News, when she was told that the election had been won by the Labor Party. I couldn't find that specifically, but there is this take which she provided a couple of days ago, where she's trying to explain what the Labor Party, what the Labor win really means to the Australian people. Because let's face it, after the couple of clips we've just shown you, Peter Credlin is the one who knows best.
A considered response to the weekend's big win for the Prime Minister. Certainly not the result I was hoping for, and I suspect most of you either. My hope was that the election...
Most of you, I don't know how she expects anybody who watches Sky News to vote Liberal. Most people were expecting, I think, a Labor win. How it looked, though, is a matter of contention. But most of us thought there was going to be a win. We just thought it was going to be a win shared with the Teals or the Greens. However, that wasn't the case. It was just an outright win.
Would punish a poor government that had broken promises, let them down, and made their lives more difficult, despite legitimate misgivings.
Just again, listen to the language that broke promises, let people down. So even at this particular point, she can't accept that people didn't feel let down, that they still believed that the Labor Party, as opposed to the Liberal Party and the Nationals, was more likely to deliver them better government.
Might have had about the opposition. Maybe not enough to win, but enough to make the chance of winning in 3 years' time more likely than not. But that's not what happened. Electorally, there's been a wipeout. More so for the Liberals, though, than the Nationals, and I'll get to that in a moment. And Labor under Albanese has broken records, with Albanese now the only third Labor leader in its 120-year history to win 2 terms of government, after Gough Whitlam and Bob Hawke. Now
and I'm not gonna bore you with the rest of it. She brings up a comparison between Tony Abbott and God, I've just lost the previous and Howard. So she brings up this comparison between the two, where they won more seats, right? So somehow, because of this comparison, it wasn't as significant as what everybody else is making it out to be. This is the spin that they tend to want to put on it, and it's pretty disgusting. And there's this one final one I want to play with you. I don't want to bore you too much, but there's this final one of Andrew Bolt. Now, to be fair, no, I won't be fair. I dislike this man intensely. He's kind of a showman, really, and he's a charlatan in many ways, I think. And he's trying to, in this particular video, and I'll just play only a minute of it for you, but he's trying to portray something which is quite meaningful to many people, which is the Pope's passing, and Albanese's response to this. And he tries, and this is what Sky News, and it irritates the shit out of me, because this is what Sky attempt to do all the time, to take something which is serious and meaningful for so many people. You don't have to be a Roman Catholic, you don't have to be religious, to understand that this is a meaningful moment for many people. But no, not for this man who wants to turn it into a political event.
He said he was suspending campaigning this morning out of respect for the death of the Pope. And that's not true. It's another Labor untruth. What you instead saw today was highly political campaigning, Labor very calculatingly showing it is a friend of Christians and turning the Pope into a saint of the left, particularly the saint of global warming. Anthony Albanese did it yesterday and again this morning, but he wasn't campaigning, was he?
I don't even understand that. That's a dig at the Pope, because he did have an understanding around, and a concern, I guess, for the climate and for the warming of the climate and what that's going to do to us. And so why have a shot at the Pope for that after? It just doesn't, some of this stuff that we see from Sky, to me, just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
And he asks the world to hear the cry of the earth, our common home. He invited world leaders to join him and, to quote him, emerge from the dark night of wars and environmental devastation in order to turn our common future into the dawn of a new and radiant day. He was tireless in advocating for the powerless, campaigning against poverty, for the rights of working people, and for protecting our natural environment.
Which incidentally is the antithesis of anything that the Liberal Party stand for.
And Albanese even suggested that he himself was a believer.
And I won't go into this bit, but it's evident, it's just so evident to me that Sky News will use every opportunity, I guess, to present an argument against even righteousness. So the way Anthony was addressing the Pope's passing was appropriate for a Prime Minister, appropriate for anybody, but certainly appropriate for a Prime Minister to do. But even that had to be destroyed by Sky News. And that's just who they are. So I'm going to be watching from now on all of these incarnations that tend to erupt out of the mouths of the Sky News broadcasters, because I'm fascinated by the way that they tried to address what's happened in the political scene here in Australia. How they're going to plan to turn that into something else from this point on will be interesting to watch. It'll be interesting to watch for all of us, because I have this basic belief that when the right wing are placed against a wall and they have nowhere to turn, they will choose to be as aggressive as they have ever been, and they will find ways by which they can implement their version of righteousness in a way which will impact all of us in some horrific ways. So I'm anxious to see what that looks like, and I'll do what I can to talk about it with you. And if you'd like to make a comment about any of that, please let me know. Please subscribe to my channel. Please remember to ring the bell and share my videos if you wouldn't mind. I'd greatly appreciate that. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.